Okay, you should be good now.
Very good. Good evening, everyone. Why don't we call this meeting to order? I think we had Joan here a moment ago. Joan, you still with us?
Her name is not here. And we did have Amy, but I've lost her, so I don't know what, hang on. Yeah, I've lost Amy. Now
There's Joan.
is Brenda Clement, is she from the Rhode Island Housing?
She's from Housing Works, Rhode Island.
Okay. I'm going to try to promote her to panelist.
Okay.
Which is what I did to Amy, but then she disappeared. So
very good.
There's Brenda.
Okay.
All right.
Well, why don't we call this meeting to order now that we have a quorum, and by way of roll call, let's see who we have with us. Andrew Moore, present. Joan Shamshoyan,
Present.
Bob Rotman,
Present.
Isabel Mattia.
Present.
Very good. Welcome, Brenda. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me back.
The first item on our agenda this evening is to approve the minutes from last month's meeting, that being September 17th. The minutes have been mailed to everyone, I assume. Is there anyone who has a question with regard to those minutes?
No, very well done, Isabel. Nice job.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion to approve those?
Motion to approve.
I'll make the motion with them.
In a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We'll let the record show that that's unanimous.
Okay.
Second item on the agenda is the treasurer's report. Joan, I don't know if you've had occasion to speak with the town treasurer this month, or?
I did. I actually, Mary Jane sent me without even my asking, she sent me the balance. So our balance is $91,772.50. And that would be up from $3,950 from last month.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, Joan.
That does include the $6,000 annual allotment.
Okay. Very good. Any comments, questions, or discussions with regard to the treasurer's report?
I will note going forward, Mary Jane's retiring next month, so I think
So we have to break somebody else in?
well, you'll have to go to the finance director in the
Okay.
future. So I can connect you with him.
Okay.
Very good. Moving on to item number 3, which is why Brenda was here, which is an update regarding the Housing Works Rhode Island proposal that we have been discussing for some months now, but discussed with Brenda last month, and we're glad that she's back here with us. All members should have received the proposal from Housing Works Rhode Island. Without further ado, Andrew, I'll pass the ball to you.
Yes. So yeah, Brenda, thank you so much for putting this together. I think it basically covers everything that we talked about at our meeting with you last month. I don't know if you wanted to say anything about it.
No, I mean, I tried to be responsive to the comments and questions that came up, and hopefully I did that. And did just try to, assign kind of some steps and some dollar figures to each step, just so that you could make better and informed decisions. So, again, it's somewhat fluid and flexible depending on tasks and how long they take, but it gives you at least a ballpark.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that a lot, giving us that flexibility. Did everyone get a chance to look it over? Have any questions about it?
I did. Joan Shamshoyan. I liked the proposal very much because it seemed to be inclusive and it was going to be surveying, it appeared to me, townspeople as well as various entities such as the planning board and zoning board. But then I looked at the outline of activities in the draft budget, and I don't see too much going on insofar as dealing with a survey that would hit citizens, private citizens.
Well, my
Could that be
understanding. Sure, Mr. Chairman, happy to try to address that.
By all means, please, yes.
So as my understanding of the survey process from what we talked about at the last meeting was that would be kind of a survey of taxpayers or residents of the community, that we obviously would need help and assistance from your group and town officials to distribute out. So Joan, that would be the way, if you will, that local residents could be engaged in the process as well. I'm also, we would want to get names from all of you about kind of the key informants, just research team, a term, but I mean, it's obviously the key players or key people in your town or in the community that we should talk to about housing challenges. So I think both ways there would be opportunities for residents, particularly the survey, to participate.
Well, it said something about using Qualtrics, which I looked up, and that is a company that does surveys. And yet the survey design, you have down $500 for that. And I noticed that Qualtrics, are you planning on using them?
We have some access through the university to some of those tools. So the costs are different than if you just went out kind of on the private market.
Because using Qualtrics, is, so far as I saw, it starts at $1,500, and we're getting a survey design for $500. Yet it looks to me as if we're spending a disproportionate amount of funds on getting key informant interviews and analysis, and not enough money.
Well, as I said, it's a ballpark, and I mean, and some flexibility within the budget line items for different things would be appreciated. The key informant interviews I went a little higher on because we really didn't talk about a number of people that you wanted to have us interview in that process. So depending on the number, that figure could be pretty close to what.
I'm sorry. As a ballpark figure, how many were you planning on interviewing?
In the 8 to 10 range of people, but again, we would take direction from this group on about who we should dive in deeper. That number may go higher, but to try to keep it. And again, we didn't really discuss timeline too much the last time, and so a lot of that would also depend on how tight your timeline is.
Okay, I was hoping, because I've been on the board for quite a while, on the Housing Trust for quite a while, and we've talked about surveys many times. And in my mind, I always thought about surveying people in the town more so than people sitting on boards. That was, and when I looked at the proposal, it seemed to me that it said, okay, that you're going to disseminate a survey and to get a sample, it said broadly, to get a sample. And I don't find surveying 8 to 10 people who sit on boards too broad, truthfully.
Right. Well, I think we're mixing up the two comments. The survey would go out to a much broader group of people, obviously residents and taxpayers in the town. We wanted to add the key informant interviews back in because you just have no idea kind of what response rate you'll get back on the survey as well. I mean, if you get a 20% response rate back, that would be very high.
Okay. To me, it seems like we're interviewing people that we've been speaking with all along. And it's just my opinion that we're interviewing people sitting on boards whose whom we've spoken with over the years. But, you know, that's just my thought. I was more excited about interviewing people and hearing from people in the town, disseminating our information to them and getting feedback from the people in the town, from residents.
Well, and I think the survey tool would be part of that. I think we made it clear on it that, well, we could help design the survey. This price really doesn't include kind of disseminating the survey and getting people to fill it out. That would be something, you know, that this commission or committee would do. The $500 really is just to design and craft the questions and help you set up the actual metric, you know, system to use to collect the information. We would analyze that data and information that came in. The actual kind of dissemination of the survey, my understanding really, and this price reflects, you know, that this committee or somebody in the town would be kind of helping to spread that word. So, and Jen, to kind of talk about your other comment about, I agree with you that we need to talk to kind of different people in the community as well too. And so in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, we want to talk to a local commercial developer in your community. Probably want to talk to a couple of land use attorneys in your community that have done work. We want to talk to your school department. We want to talk to your senior housing, senior center folks and other folks that may, you know, be affiliated with with the town, but may not be directly related. And if you've already talked to the, you know, this is where we need guidance from you as to who you think is most valuable to talk to. But again, those are the types of people that we like to talk to when we're trying to put together thoughts and plans for our community.
Okay. And speaking of the survey design, however, would the same survey be appropriate for members of boards and that you would want to send out to residents? Would it be the same survey if we were to send or use a survey for residents?
I think they would, I think so. I don't see any reason why they would have to be two separate documents. And so, you know, we would want to send it and disseminate it out as widely as possible.
Okay, so that would be my hope. That's the catchphrase, as widely as possible. I'm kind of not too excited about a survey that goes with 10 people or 8 people. That just, to me, seems like $6,000 to survey 8 people. Seems a bit high.
Yeah. And that is not what this proposal is before you. The proposal before you is to help you develop the survey and the questions for the survey. It would, and then to analyze the data that is collected from that survey. Based on our conversation last time, it was clear, you know, I thought that I made it clear, and if I didn't, I'll make it clearer now.
Sorry.
Okay, that this committee and the town would kind of be responsible for disseminating the survey and the information, and that we would be analyzing that data when it came back in. So, but the intent, I think, your committee members can, commission members can certainly talk better about this than I. I think in our conversations were always that it would be as a survey that reached as many people as possible.
Okay, and how would you be doing that? It said paper and electronic?
Yes, again, you know, that would be up to you too, to decide what you think is the most effective way to do that. But I mean, both the paper and electronic version would be what we would recommend.
So
Okay.
I have a comment about that as well. I think, so just to clarify, the proposal is to do a townwide survey and then also the key informant interviews on top of the townwide survey. And this proposal does use our full discretionary budget for the year. So in order for us to be able to disseminate a mailer, which would cost a townwide mailer, I don't know off the top of my head, Andrew probably could ballpark that better than I could. We would have to dip into the rest of our trust money, which would involve calling a financial town meeting. So that's a consideration, just in terms of the budget that we have available to us. But I really like the idea of doing both the townwide survey and the key informant interviews.
Yeah, and I think the response to the key informant interviews, and I think it was your colleague Bob, who I think is on the phone, had raised the issue about kind of, what if you don't get a good response to the survey? So the key informant issues would hopefully fill in some of the gaps to that. But, obviously the budget decisions, this is a proposal to us. If you don't feel you want to pay that amount of money or want to kind of pick off pieces of the job, again, I just was trying to give you a benchmark as to what each task would potentially cost.
Okay.
We appreciate that.
Bob, are you still with us?
Yeah, and I have a question. Is it now a good time for it?
By all means.
Okay, I'm looking at the second page and it refers to a draft budget. And we see dollar amounts, but we don't see component costs and we don't see the number of components. So is it $500 for 1 hour, $250 for 2 hours? And how do we know what to be versus the actual? Usually when you get a budget, it might be a not to exceed number, but we don't have the parameters that go into the individual component lines.
And I deliberately didn't provide you with any of that detail yet, because again, based on our last conversation, it was just try to give you a ballpark figure per task. But if you decide to move forward, we can provide you with more detail in terms of number of staff hours and rate and so forth. I just wasn't sure, kind of if you were ready for that level of detail.
Yeah, okay,
But certainly
for the board,
before we
we
enter
would need to have
a
something
contract
like
or
that,
agreement.
or we approve something. I mean, this is good for going forward, but I think that if you finally say we want to approve of it, we want to know the rate and the number of individual line items, hours, for example, that go into it. So that, for example, it might be less than $6,000 if we, compare the actual to the budget.
You obviously, we're happy to provide you with more details if you decide to proceed. I will tell you that, this is a low ball number to begin with. So for particularly if you're contemplating a townwide survey. I understand Isabel's point, about that you've got a mailing cost on which, you have to kind of figure in what your discretionary monies are.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying that the parameters are not defined as to what the actual pieces are, and that is number of units, a number of dollars per unit.
If I may, Bob.
Yeah.
Just speaking for me only, I would say that, as mentioned, a survey is something that we have discussed for quite a long time.
Yeah.
I think that we're in good hands with Housing Works Rhode Island, an excellent organization and extremely reputable. And
I don't deny it. I'm just saying, when you get a proposal, I'm used to seeing things with units of measure and cost per unit.
Well, I think that there might be a mutual benefit in the way in which this has been presented, given that we really can't define exactly what all of these parameters just might be. And I think that there's a leap of faith to some extent. Now, insofar as we are expending the taxpayers' money, it's important that we do so responsibly.
Okay, it's just,
to
if
Isabel's
anybody doesn't
point,
agree with me, I just want putting that forward because that's what I'm used to seeing in a lot of proposals.
I understand your point, Bob, exactly, but I do feel as though Housing Works Rhode Island is the organization to do this job.
Yeah.
And I think Joan clarified the question that I have regarding, I want to see a survey go to every registered voter in town, regardless of whether they're taxpayers or not. And secondly, the 8 to 10 key informants, I hope that we would be able to choose whom it is who gets interviewed. Because I think there could be a few people who do a lot of work and have a lot of information in this town who fly under the radar screen and might not be on boards or might not be up front. So regarding postage, Isabel, your point was well taken. We spend all our money, we won't be able to send the survey out. It seems to me at a postcard rate of 35 cents, if we look at the registered voters of 2,500 people or thereabouts, maybe not so many, we'd be looking at upward of maybe $1,000 just for postage. There
Not
may
counting
be-
the postcards themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's certainly a consideration that perhaps we should we should think about before we go ahead and spend all the money we have. And I don't know if there's something that Carol could weigh in on in terms of our access to funds outside of going to a town meeting. We could hold a special town meeting to get access to those funds. I don't know what we would need for a quorum townwide.
Well, have you asked the question of anyone in the know as to whether or not you have access to the funds that are in that extra housing trust fund that's being created by the building permits?
Andrew, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, I did speak with Dick Humphrey. I don't know, Patrick, if you've spoken with Dick at all about it.
I only know that when this provision was implemented by the town council in September of 2018, the building fund fee, part and parcel to that was that it would require the townspeople to vote on how it gets expended. So,
well, yes and no. It is required for how you purchase properties. But for day-to-day expenses, I'm not sure that you need a financial town meeting. I would like to have someone speak to Richard and get an actual written opinion out of him on how you can or cannot spend those funds. I know you've got the, what was it, $6,000 that was approved, or 5,000 at the financial town meeting? Six, okay. So that's a given. But the other funds, if you're not spending it on purchasing a home or leasing a home or land, but you're spending it on, professional services or something like that. I don't know if this fund falls into the same type of category as, say, the Harbor Management Fund that doesn't have to go back to town meeting for something. So we need to get that clarified.
I like your optimism.
Yeah, and I spoke with Dick briefly yesterday about this, and it is very clear in terms of acquisition of property that we do need approval from the voters.
Yes, that's definite.
On that front, but regarding other expenditures, it's not exactly clear. And Dick said he's gonna look it over and get back to me on what he's gonna give me an opinion on what he thinks.
Oh, okay.
Another factor here is that we're looking at November, and we have 8 months until the end of the fiscal year. And if we think about how long, and Brenda, perhaps you could speak to this, how long it might take us to formulate this survey before it's ready to send out, I think it could take several, perhaps many months to do so effectively.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope it wouldn't take too much longer than 6 weeks to 2 months or so. I mean, I think the timing when you send it out might be a challenge as we start to come on holiday season and, and a second wave potential and everything else that we'll all be facing. So, I mean, you may not want to send it out till January, in which time it would give us, at least a couple of months to kind of fine tune it, get the language set. We could start key informant interviews and other things prior to the survey going out, so that some of the work starts at least before. When we did some of our work for East Providence, I mean, obviously it has to get reviewed by the committee and so forth, so that slows it down. But we had it done, within 2 months easily. So to actually design the survey.
Brenda, I've got a question. You mentioned that we'd possibly be lucky if we got a 20% response rate to like a townwide survey that we sent out. What?
Yeah, that's high. I mean, the average response rate is usually closer to 12 to 13%. So, but I mean, there's always anomalies. I don't know if you've done any other town surveys before. Maybe you get higher percentages, but. You'll get all the no people, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. What kind of data do you get from those responses compared to what kind of information you get from the key informants that you will interview? How useful is the survey response versus what you're going to get from key informants?
It's a helpful tool because you do get a sense as to kind of the obstacles, and you get a sense as to the level of understanding of the issue as well too. And so, I mean, it does help, but in and of itself, it's not a silver bullet tool, that kind of gets you all the information that you need.
Okay. Yeah, because I do
I'm not
see.
sure that
Yeah,
I'm not sure that I answered your question well, but
no, I think it's an important tool in what we'll do, and give us some ideas to what kind of policy we need to craft going forward for the town. But I do see a lot of merit in putting some attention into targeted interviews with people that are members of organizations in town that have close interactions with the folks that would be really affected by this. And just offhand thinking of people at the community center who deal with a lot of like lower income folks, the wellness center, those sorts of organizations that would have a better idea.
Yeah, major employers in your community who may be having trouble retaining employees, or having concerns with employees because of housing, and all of those are folks that you get valuable information from. That, to your colleagues' point, don't necessarily sit on an official board or a committee, but have very valuable input.
Okay.
I have a question about that as well. So with these key informant interviews, how are they typically conducted? Do you sit with the person and you have like a longer extended conversation?
Yeah, it's usually kind
obviously
of a one-on-one,
sit with
and again, kind of some. Yeah, I mean,
with COVID, it'll probably be on Zoom, but
it would probably be Zoom or phone, obviously, while we're still going through all of this. But yes, it's kind of a one-on-one with the person. Again, kind of some standard questions that you would ask all of the key informants as well too, which we would want feedback from this group as well. But just trying to pick up consistent themes and information from those individuals. Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to drop off whenever appropriate so that you can further discuss. So please just give me the boot when needed.
Yeah, okay. Is there anyone else who has any further questions for Brenda?
No.
No, I mean, I guess one comment that I wanted to make was that I was just happy to see that this proposal includes the survey, the townwide survey design, the key informant interviews, analysis of the data, and also a report with some recommendations for action steps and best practices and policy, potential policy recommendations, as well as the presentation to us and to other stakeholders. I think that I just feel like that's really valuable to this group in terms of helping guide our vision based on data and helping us have some action steps forward. So I'm excited about this idea, and I just hope we can figure out how to make it work.
Great.
And thank you for
Well,
your
speaking of data, if your schedule permits, tomorrow we're releasing our annual fact book, our 2020 fact book morning session, where we'll give an overview of it and kind of our fact book lunch via Zoom starting at about 11:15. The morning session starts at about 10, when our research director will give an overview of the findings in the fact book. And statewide, we've got lots of challenges around housing, and we had them before COVID, but COVID has just exacerbated some of those issues and problems as well. So I can't promise a lot of good news tomorrow, but at least information and data that hopefully helps us direct and guide resources to address the issue. So please join us if you can.
Thank you, Brenda.
At this
Thanks
point
again.
in
Good
time-
luck. Thanks. Nice to see everyone. And Bob, nice to hear you. And,
Okay, thank
please-
you.
Thank you, Brenda. We will be in touch.
Yeah. Thanks again. Have a good rest of the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
This is Carol. Before you get into your discussion, has anyone thought of doing, say, a Survey Monkey type of survey of the community and putting, or some survey that you put together and then link it to the website?
Mhm.
I mean,
When I looked up,
go ahead.
excuse me. When I looked up Qualtrics, they said that was a similar company to SurveyMonkey. And that's why I wondered if they were going to use Qualtrics, because it seemed as if it was a good program, but the fee does start, as far as I read, at $1,500.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know if SurveyMonkey is the same format and price.
Yeah, there are varied prices. What I was going to say is I spearheaded rewriting our hazard mitigation plan. And in the early stages of that, we developed our own survey. And then we did some mailing, but then we also had it linked on our website. And I had a pretty decent response from people answering it through the website. So you might want to consider something like that.
That's a good suggestion.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
think that's a really good suggestion.
I think
That
so.
would save, I think that would save some money, you know. And
You know,
it's
I
much
also-
easier to get a response that way.
I also feel as though if we had a survey card or a postcard designed, it wouldn't necessarily have to be mailed. We could leave them at places like Wilbur Store, the back of churches in town, at the town hall, at the community center. It may add to the challenge of how we retrieve and disseminate the information, but I think making it as widely available as possible is important.
Mhm.
I agree.
I would say, I think running the survey through like a program like SurveyMonkey is a great idea. But I do like the idea of the townwide mailing, just because I think that, first of all, I mean, $1,000 it's not, prohibitively expensive. And I think that it does just open up the access. I really want to make sure that everyone who wants to participate is able to. And if we have information on there about, I'm just thinking of some like elder friends of mine in town that don't really use computers, or that might want to put their input in. But so just to maybe to have two options, and really to make sure that we're reaching as many people as we can. Because maybe they would call someone and someone could input their information into the SurveyMonkey or something like that, just to have a procedure to make sure it's as most accessible as it possibly can be. Especially because like library access is different now because of COVID. I don't know, that's my feeling.
In that regard, Isabel, when we talk about the length of time necessary to develop this survey comprehensively, and the time in which it will be distributed, there may be some advantage to not dragging our feet, but extending that time until such time as we're not bound by the rules of COVID, in other words. And I don't know if anyone else has an idea on that. There's two advantages that I see. One is the new fiscal year begins in July, which would lead to us perhaps acquiring more funding. And secondly, let's hope that by that time, there might be some vaccine that's widely distributed or available, which may change the rules of which we've been living for some months now. So only a suggestion.
I just don't want to gamble on it, because who knows how long that's going to be. I'm sorry to say.
But am I making myself clear that we don't necessarily want to take longer than we have to? However, we may get a better result if we waited until such time as people weren't shut into their homes and bound by the COVID regulations and rules.
Yeah.
Are you saying from the townwide survey, you think we get a better result?
Perhaps.
Oh, okay.
You know, if people moved freely about town as they did prior to March, there might be more opportunity for people to come in contact with a survey card, or, you know, people might feel more freely about and be able to more freely fill it out and
Yeah.
participate.
I do think a mailing. I mean, I don't think a mailing is that cost prohibitive. I think we can print and get out a mailing to every door for about $1,500, based on my experience within the last month, which I don't think is outrageous. And you know, I think getting the proper questions together, we could ask people to respond in a couple ways. We could put a website on there and ask them to go fill out the survey there, or we could put a phone number on there and someone can assist them in taking their response if they're comfortable doing that. And obviously, we could make it all anonymous if people feel uncomfortable doing it. Yeah, I don't know. I think there are many ways we can do this. And I think these people haven't heard from us in a long time. I saw a mailing that was sent out from the Housing Trust. I don't know when it was, but I know Bob Morrow was on the trust when they sent that out. I don't know if there's been anything sent out since then. I think it's sometimes nice to get something in the mail. And we could use it as another opportunity, not just for the survey, but also a little bit of just information about who we are, in case they've, I guess, like a reintroduction to the Housing Trust in a way. But I don't want that to get bogged down. I don't want the survey to get bogged down in any other information that we would send out. So
You
Yeah,
should,
I agree.
yeah, you should keep in mind that the town has a bulk rate permit. So you're gonna be able to file your mailing in that fashion. So your postage is gonna be less than what you're getting for John Q. Public.
what is it, Carol, like townwide? Is it about like $750?
Depends on what you're mailing, but that's generally about the
Yeah.
number, yeah.
That would just be the postage,
Mhm.
not
Yeah, that's the
including that.
postage.
Yeah.
But, and that's usually mailing a standard size letter.
Yeah.
So if you have a survey that you'd like to do that you can fit on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, you could have that paper serve as the envelope if it's folded trifold. So that's something else to think of, that you can save a little money that way.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Is there any further discussion on the Housing Works Rhode Island survey proposal?
Not for me.
Okay, Bob.
I'm done. I'm out.
Is there anyone who'd like to make a motion relative to this proposal?
One thing I would say about it is that one of the things that I like about having them help us design the survey questions is that because they're interested in helping us analyze the data, and because they're an agency that has a lot of experience in looking at data statewide, that I think it's worth paying them to help us design the survey, so that we're making sure that we're asking the questions that are really going to get the right answers and that are going to optimize our data to really help us understand the picture that we're looking at. So I guess I just wanted to say that as opposed to just sort of coming up with it on our own, I think it's a smart thing to have them involved in that, in the design process.
Might I ask a question?
By all means, Carol.
Have any of you surveyed any of the other towns that may have already gone through a survey process to get a copy of their survey?
We have been in touch with various towns throughout the state regarding affordable housing, but not specific to surveys.
Okay, so not that I'm saying not use this group, but I'm saying if you're looking for areas to try and save money a little bit, maybe you want to look to see at what the other cities and towns have done for surveys and see whether or not those questions fit Little Compton. You know, maybe you can whittle down how much you're going to spend with this housing group. If you can do some of that legwork and just let them do the data extrapolation part.
I don't know, does anyone have any opinions or ideas on that comment?
Well, I
Sounds
just,
like a good idea, but
whatever questions we ask the public, I think it'll have to be similar to whatever we're asking them to interview. I think it's got to be cohesive. If we are going to ask them to do the key interviews, whatever we send to the public will have to be similar in a way, or be able to fit together with what they're doing. So we'd still have to collaborate, I feel, on that front.
I do feel as though Housing Works Rhode Island is the go-to agency in the state for data regarding housing and affordable housing specifically. I don't know that I'm not aware of any other agencies, independent nonprofit agencies, which provide the same kind of data. And all things being equal, this proposal does include a collaboration between this board and Housing Works Rhode Island to formulate the survey as well as the interviews. So we do have a proposal before us. If anyone would like to make a motion to approve or not, the floor is open.
could you restate the proposal, please?
So there was a proposal that was mailed or emailed to each of us from Housing Works
Okay.
Rhode Island.
So we talk about voting on this passage was presented to us in that document then, basically.
Yeah, do you have that proposal, Bob?
Yeah, I have it. That's why I responded to you before about the number in the bottom.
Yep. So I don't know if it would be appropriate at this time to vote as to whether we want to accept that proposal, or if there would be a motion to delay voting on this proposal in light of further other recommendations or other discussions.
I have a question. We received a proposal and we also received an outline of activities and draft budget. Which one are we voting on? The first page with the Housing Works proposal, or the outline of activities and the budget, or the whole thing?
So my understanding is that it is one proposal. The first page is a descriptive, and the second page is a breakdown of what's being expended. I don't know if anyone else has a different interpretation of that.
I agree.
Well, as I felt that when I read it, that the proposal was pretty different from the outline of activities and draft budget. Because it didn't, the proposal seemed more comprehensive. But we've been talking now about, interviewing people and surveying people other than key informants, and that makes me far more comfortable.
She froze.
I think maybe, Joan, I don't want to rephrase, but I think maybe the discrepancy that you're referring to is coming from the fact that the townwide survey dissemination would be not included in what we pay them. Like that's not part of the budget that they've proposed. So that part is that step is included in the proposal, but it's not included in the budget because the budget's what we're paying to Housing Works, and the survey would fall outside of this budget. So that's the only thing that I'm thinking about is that. Well, I have two thoughts. One is that we could try to just really clarify if we can access our own funds outside of trying to secure a property. Like if we can access our own funds for day-to-day activities, then we would be able to comprehensively do both what's proposed here and disseminate a mailer. And then my other thought was that, I don't know, she said, Brenda said that the survey production, I think if I understood correctly, would take under 2 months. But I don't know about the whole process. And I'm wondering if the process spans 2 fiscal years, if perhaps it makes sense to break the budget into 2 sections where data collection falls in this fiscal year and data analysis falls in the next fiscal year, and that we might have a little more wiggle room with the budget that way, if that makes sense. Because my understanding is that the $6,000 allotment doesn't roll over, right? It's like we have it each year. So if we used if we did like the first half of this, like perhaps we do a $1,500 mailer plus the survey design, the key informant interviews, and the analysis this year, fiscal year, and then did the part with the sort of comprehensive review of data and reporting, or I don't know if I'm breaking that up correctly, but the sort of, I guess what I'm sort of saying is perhaps we could do the survey data collection part this fiscal year and the analysis and presentation part next fiscal year. And that might help us with the budgetary concerns.
The thing is, the data may become
And then
very
you're
stale at
talking
that
about,
time. If you wait too long with the data, it's not very dynamic data, but nonetheless, there is quite a while between data collection and data implementation.
That's true. That's a really good concern, Bob. I agree.
I don't think you're completely accurate on losing your funds, though. If you have a commitment to a contract and the contract has not been completed, those funds can be, after the council votes this, but the funds can be held over until the next fiscal year because they're designated for a specific contract.
Okay.
okay.
Good to know.
I don't know, Carol, if there are any members of the public or if it would be appropriate if there are any questions out there from any members of the public with regard to this item.
There are 2 extra attendees. I do not see any hands at the moment, though.
Okay. Do we have any sort of motion regarding?
I fibbed. They put a hand up.
Okay.
It's Claudia McNeil. Claudia, would you unmute yourself?
Yes.
There you go.
I just want to make sure, can you hear me?
Yes.
Loud and clear. Well,
Want to make sure that you are, it sounds like there's a lot of officials that are being asked this survey stuff. And I just want to make sure that you are asking the people who need these services. And it sounds like you're touching on that, but just really make sure that you ask them what they need and when they need it. And just make sure you have their input. And also that just seems like, it seems like this survey company isn't really giving you a lot for what they're asking. But that remains to be seen. But Joan and Isabel, you've definitely brought up really good questions. Joan, if you hadn't asked that question about that you asked at the beginning, I think we wouldn't know as much as we do now. I thought that was a really good question. I can't remember what it was, but it was really good. But anyway, I just want to make sure everybody that needs the services are being taken care of. Thank you.
thank you for your comments. Yeah, I think
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I think they just said thank you.
Okay.
That's a great point, Mrs. McNeil. Thank you.
Anyone else out there who'd like to comment or ask a question in this regard?
No hands.
All right. Is there anyone who'd
Yes,
like?
I have one question. Hello?
Bob?
Go ahead.
Yes, okay. Before we vote, I'd like to ask this question. If I abstain on this vote, will it passes with everybody else? Will it still pass?
Yes, it would be a majority.
Yeah, we do have a
Okay.
quorum, so, yeah.
Okay, all right. Then that being the case, I want to let you know I'm preparing to abstain. And the reason why is because I'm not comfortable with the metrics at the end. I don't think it's clear enough and precise enough. Again, it's my opinion, but that's why I'm going to abstain. So moving forward, I'm not going to vote against it, but I will abstain.
Yeah, well, I think it's important, though, that any questions that you have about this, Bob, are answered.
No,
And
they've been answered. It's just that, it's a question of whether or not they put down, again, having worked with proposals on all my professional career, most of the time, not always, mind you, sometimes there's some ephemeral things, but you get a unit of measure and a number of units so that when the time comes to compare budget to actual, you'll be able to compare whether they were over and under by individual line item. And by having a number like $500 per survey, is that going to be 1 hour or 2 hours? And if they spend 3 hours, how do we know whether they went over or under? So without the ability to break it down by the unit of measure and the amount, I don't feel comfortable enough that we've got control over this. And that's why I'm going to abstain.
okay.
Could I make a motion? Wait, let me think about how to phrase this properly. As opposed to just to accept the proposal and the budget as written, but to make a motion to basically to accept the proposal as a concept and to work on the budget together with Housing Works and with our understanding of how and when we can access our money. In other words, to sort of accept the proposal and keep the budget as a working document. Is that something that is making sense, what I'm trying to express?
What you're trying to say makes sense, yes. Then I would vote for that.
Like, I think Bob's point is really good, that we need a little bit more clarity on how the money is spent. But I also want to be able to move forward with this idea.
The thing is, if I abstain, you can move forward, though. That's the whole point. Maybe I'll tell you what I'm going to do. In order to keep things going, I want to change my mind. I will vote for it. I realize that I'm shoveling sand against the tide here.
No, I don't think you are. I don't think you are, Bob. I'm also concerned that if we allocate our $6,000 to Housing Works and then we put ourselves in a position where we can't send the mailer out, then we're going to have a problem. Where the mailer is like the first step of the project, and we can't afford to mail it out until after the financial town meeting. So I don't want us to get ourselves into a bind where we don't have access to our own money because of the way that charter is written. And then we allocate the money to something that, that's step 2 and we can't afford to do step 1. So I don't want us to get into that situation.
Yeah, I agree with you, Isabel, but I also don't want, I agree with what you just said. And I also don't want to delay telling Housing Works that we're interested in working with them. Mm-hmm. If you understand what I'm saying, I don't want to have to wait another month,
right?
And bring them along when there might be some room to start working on their end in terms of what kind of questions could be formulated now and use their expertise in starting to get a survey ready. But I do think the numbers should. Brenda was clear. She did say that they can get more specific in terms of the budget. Mm-hmm. So we can reach out to her and get those numbers. So
I'll tell you what. At the risk of restraining gnats and swallowing flies, I will vote for the proposal presented by us by the Housing Works.
I have a question. I'd like to say something. Is there any way we can amend their proposal and say we would like certain things included before we vote on this?
Well, I think all things are possible here. I think another possibility is to say that we would like to do business with Housing Works Rhode Island, but we only have X amount to spend. In spite of this proposal for $6,000, we can only spend $5,000. So what can you give us for $5,000? Now, if we were to look at how this outline is broken down, what would you cut out of that? So there might be some legwork that people on this board might be willing or able to do that could save that taxpayer money. So there are any number of alternatives, I think. And Andrew, to your point, I think time is valuable, but I also, no one wants to rush into anything, although we've been at this for some time. Yeah, I don't know. I think there are many alternatives possible.
Okay. You know what, the thing is, your point is well made too. We have to move forward, and I'm thinking that when it's all said and done, we may be talking about a difference of $1,000, and maybe we should at least get something done. So I'm in favor of voting for it as it stands.
So is that a proposal, Bob?
No, I'm just saying, I'm just telling you, I'm amending my discussion of that. When the time comes to vote, that I will abstain. I'm telling you, when the time comes to vote, I will say it, I will approve.
Well, don't give it away just yet. There goes the suspense. Is there anyone who's
No,
willing?
no, that's all right. I can't keep a secret. My wife tells me that all the time. She's laughing right now, huh? So I suggest, okay, let's move forward and take a vote. I'm okay with that right now.
Isabel, is your motion still on the table?
Okay, yeah, my motion is that we tell Housing Works we want to work with them, but we need to work on the budget and make sure that we can afford the budget.
Okay, I'll second that.
How's
Second.
that?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'll second that.
Okay.
All right, by way of roll call, we heard that motion that we do want to work with Housing Works Rhode Island, but that we need further clarification and to work further on the budget. So given that, Bob Rotman, how do you vote?
I vote yes. Aye.
Joan Shamshoyan,
Aye.
Andrew Moore,
Aye.
Isabel Mattia?
Aye.
I'll vote aye as well, unanimously.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you, everybody. Item number 4 on our agenda this evening is with regard to collaboration and communications with the Ag Trust specific to affordable housing. This is a common topic that comes up when we talk about affordable housing. I did have occasion to speak with Bill Richmond this month via text message. I had hoped to attend their meeting this month, but just before the meeting, we lost power here on Long Highway. And I don't know if anyone else suffered the same fate, but I was unable to attend. What I did get from Bill Richmond when asked about what sort of collaborations might be possible were 2 possibilities, both of which we've heard before. But so number one is one of the ways that the Ag Trust could collaborate with the Housing Trust is if they were acquiring a piece of property which included a house or houses, those houses could in some way, shape, or form be made affordable. Secondarily, if they were to acquire vacant land, which is what they do, they could, or we could partner with an affordable housing group to buy a portion of that land for the use of affordable housing. Now, in both of those cases, there would be some complexity that I haven't addressed here, but both would be possibilities seemingly. So I think what I would like to be able to do would be to send a letter from the Housing Trust to the Ag Trust, welcoming any collaboration and any ideas that any other Ag Trust members may have. I don't know if there's any ideas or discussion on that topic.
Yeah, I think that's a great proposal. You know, it's consistent with our comprehensive plan for the town that was published a few years ago. I know one of the action items was, I've got it here, explore cooperative acquisitions that meet the dual goals of land conservation and affordable housing development. And the Ag Trust and the Housing Trust are both key players with that. So I think, you know, by way of the comp plan, that we should definitely move forward with some sort of well, trying to find out how we can cooperate with them. And it sounds like they're willing to have that conversation. And I think we should welcome it, I think they'll be willing to cooperate on that level as well.
I wonder if there's a way we can phrase it that makes it sort of like more goal or action oriented, like to say, I mean, I know we don't really have the money to back this up yet, but like that we'd really love, in the next fiscal year to have a property that's co-managed by the two boards, or, something that's just a little bit more of a deliverable. And then, I don't know, that's something we could shoot for as a goal. I don't know.
In the event a letter is sent, are there any specific items that anyone would like to see addressed?
Nothing from me.
I mean, I would like to just specifically say in the letter that, I mean, it's my belief, I don't know if everyone else in this group feels this way, that affordable housing and agriculture are intrinsically linked in our community. And that, if we're looking at agriculture as one of the sort of backbone industries of what makes Little Compton what it is, and we have, a whole board that's devoted to it, that it seems that housing the people that run and work in that industry, it feels like an intrinsic connection. And I don't know, I just like to really kind of hit that point, directly. Because I think there's a little bit of a perception that the two things are opposed. I don't think that that's the case. I think they're intrinsically linked.
Any other ideas or suggestions for any content in the letter? What I will do is write a draft of a letter which includes that point and others, and I'll submit it for everyone's approval before it goes to the Ag Trust, if that's acceptable to everyone.
Mhm.
So
Works for me.
I don't think that's something that we need to vote on. Okay,
Patrick, thank you for writing it.
very good. So moving on, item number 5 are potential properties. Anybody seen any bargains for sale in Little Compton these days? Are there any properties that anyone has identified or seen for sale which might be of interest as affordable housing? This might be a short line item.
I mean, I think when we talk about this, the question that always comes up is like the gap between our budget and the price of property in town. I think it just really highlights the need for more support for this this trust, because I see lots of properties up for sale, but none of them are, none of them are available for $91,000. So I don't know. That just brings that question back up again. That's not a very helpful answer, but that's my feeling.
One noteworthy element here is if the town were to acquire or purchase an existing house for the intent of affordable housing, then that house would have to meet HUD, federal regulation. It would have to be inspected and approved before it could actually be used as affordable housing. So if that bargain house that might occur one of these days would likely need a significant amount of renovation in order to meet those HUD guidelines and those HUD standards. And again, as we know, it would be an absolute minimum of a 30-year set aside for that property. So I don't know that there are any properties specifically on the market that we haven't talked about yet, but keep your eyes open, folks. You never know. The treasury seems to be growing, Joan.
Yes.
Any other comments, questions on?
Mrs.
Property.
McNeil has a question.
Oh, very good. Yes, Mrs. McNeil.
Would a seller of property be would they be okay with waiting for HUD to approve? Or would they say, you guys are gonna take way too long, I want to sell this thing, and so we're not interested in your proposal? So does that happen, or can you say we're interested in a property, and then they have to wait for HUD to approve it and all that?
So I believe that it would be Rhode Island Housing who would act on HUD's behalf to do that inspection. And depending upon the property, a seller may not wish to undergo any such inspection, or may choose to not have it as a contingency in a sale. So, but in order for the town to have that piece of property considered as affordable housing, it would need to meet those HUD requirements.
It just sounds like it would never happen then, because if someone wants to sell property, they don't want to hang around and wait for HUD to come in and take forever to approve a property or something, to do an inspection and do all that.
So what I'm saying is, it would not be a condition of the sale. In other words, if the town through this body were able to get to a point where we were able to acquire a piece of property,
Yeah.
it wouldn't make sense to have that inspection as a contingency of the sale or as a condition of sale. We would purchase the property, and
Yeah.
after having done so at our expense, would have to have that property inspected and upgraded if necessary to comply with HUD standards.
Okay. And then in order to buy that property, do you have to wait for a financial town meeting? You don't, right?
Oh, yes.
Well, we need enough money first, and then it would have to be voted on by
Financial town meeting.
And just to clarify, though, that does not mean that it has to wait for a financial town meeting. That's your annual town meeting. A special town meeting could be called.
Right.
Thank
Right.
you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other issues regarding potential properties?
We can accept gifted properties. So please, everybody, let everybody know that if they want to leave us a property in their will,
I'll leave it to the town.
we can
It's-
accept it.
Yeah.
Or to the town, yeah, for the purpose of affordable housing.
So it still all could be approved,
Yes, it would still have to be approved.
but that would give us more time to get that together.
All right, moving on. Item number 6 is correspondence. I don't know if we had any correspondence this month. No. As Brenda had noted earlier, the Housing Works Rhode Island 2020 fact book is going to be coming out tomorrow. So that's usually correspondence we look forward to, and it should be in our mailbox soon. We'll look forward to that. Item number 7 on tonight's agenda is to review and discuss the bylaws of this board. If you'll recall, last month, there was a proposal to modify the bylaws with regard to notification for meetings and for changes of those bylaws. But I guess it requires a majority that we did not
No.
have last month.
It requires 5.
So I don't know if there's any, Isabel, did you have anything in mind with regard to this item?
Yes, the thing is, Patrick, it requires 5 people. We didn't have 5 people, but today we do.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay.
So I don't know if anyone has on hand the proposal that Isabel had submitted last month.
I don't even have it on hand, but I can get it. But basically, the proposal is to change 2 phrases in our bylaws. One is that bylaw changes have to be disseminated to the trustees by regular mail. And so I want to add in the phrase or electronic mail. And also that notice of meetings is supposed to happen by regular mail each month. And I just, again, wanted to add in the phrase or electronic mail so that basically we can just be corresponding for the purposes of convening our meetings through email. You know, we don't conduct business through email, but convening the meetings through email seems reasonable and it is within the open meeting laws. It's acceptable within the open meeting laws. So that was my proposed change, just to make life a little easier.
All right, well, then I'll make a motion to accept those changes to the bylaws.
One thing though, Isabel, did you give any thought to the amount of time required before the meeting? Right now it says it's quite a long wait, isn't there?
It says
Like
10
10
days,
days.
Bob, and you brought that up, and I didn't get my act together to send a new letter out. I don't find 10 days to be a hindrance to me, especially when it's email. As a letter, as a hard letter, 10 days is tough. But I think sending out the notice of the meeting 10 days in advance of the meeting is I don't find that to be cumbersome. So as
Okay.
long as it's by email, I do find sending letters to be kind of cumbersome.
Okay. And you do have that 2 days for the state Secretary of State, right? You know that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have the proposal that was sent in August 20th, which last month everyone acknowledged that they had received. So we have more than 21 days notice on that.
That's
And
correct.
within that, we have two motions. The first is with regard to the amendment of bylaws. These bylaws may be altered, amended, or repealed by new bylaws, may be adopted by a 5/7 vote of the trustees present. So, and again, in this regard, it's sending notice of change to the bylaws. The 21 days will remain in effect, but Isabel's motion includes the idea that it would be electronic mail as an alternative, or as well as regular mail. So I don't know if we want to have two motions and two votes. Would that sound like it's in order for everyone? The first
No, are
being
they two-
bylaws and the second one
Are they two
about.
parts- Are there two parts of the charter? They're two different sections?
Yes, there are. The second one is similar to the first, but it is with regard to meetings.
Okay. I think we should separate them, so just a minor formality.
Yeah, I think it would require two votes. So the first, as I said, is with regard to amending the bylaws. It requires that there be 21 days notice. And as written, it says notice by regular mail. Isabel's change would include the option of electronic mail. Is there a motion on that particular proposal?
Motion to approve that change to the bylaws.
Do we have a second?
I will second it.
Moved and seconded by way of roll call. Joan Shamshoyan, how do you vote?
Yes, aye.
Bob Rotman, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Andrew Moore, how do you vote?
Aye.
Isabel Mattia, how do you vote?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. The second motion with regard to changes would be Article 3, Item 7, pertaining to notice of meetings. So notice of monthly meetings shall be sent to members of the board with 10 days notice and can be done by regular mail, and we'll add by electronic mail, which seems to have been the standard already, but just to make it official. Do we have a motion in that regard?
Motion to accept that as written.
Second.
Roll call vote. Joan Chamchoyan,
Aye.
Bob Rotman,
Aye.
Andrew Moore,
Aye.
Isabel Mattia.
Aye.
I vote aye as well, unanimous. Thank you for your persistence, Isabel. Entering the 21st
Small
century.
thing, but you know. So the next thing we have to do is send that to the town council so they can approve it, and that has to happen within 60 days or something. So do you want me to do that?
If you would be willing, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Our next meeting is next Thursday, so if you can do it by Monday, that would be great.
Can you do that? Yeah.
With that said, our meeting has concluded in terms of the business we have before us. Carol, do we have any townspeople or anyone on the line that would like to speak or be heard?
The only person that's left now is Mrs. McNeil. And
Okay.
I think she said what she needed to.
Very good. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And seconded? Nobody's going to argue with this one, I think, right?
Okay.
You can call it unanimous.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Carol.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carol.
You're
Bye
welcome.
now.
Thank you.